Hello and welcome to the Relax, It's Retirement podcast with your host, Josh Leonard, where we talk about transitioning into retirement with intent. I am Wendy McConnell. We have Pete Belcastro. The gang is all here. We are ready to get started.
That's right. Back at it again.
Absolutely.
Back at it again. It's like, vacations are over, school's back in, things are normal until, December hits. And then we're like Christmas and holidays. And then we can start slacking off again, right?
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. So what are we going to be talking about today, guys?
Well, today we're going to be talking about giving more. So, as you talked about, getting into that giving season,
Yeah.
we're going to start by being thankful here, and then we'll start giving, right? So, the saying is we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And that was Winston Churchill. And I think, quite frankly, we were reminded quite recently of the power of giving. For our 10th annual client appreciation event, we partnered with Variety, the children's charity of Pittsburgh, and their My Bike program. And as we've talked about on the podcast, I've done a lot of biking. My family's been doing more biking now. My kids joined like a mountain bike racing team. There's been a lot of biking in my world. Pete had a long bike ride this year too.
Yeah, we bike as a team together when we get together too. So
That's true. Yeah. So lots of bike stuff. So this seemed like the perfect program to partner with. And Variety does, through their My Bike program, they provide adaptive bikes to children with disabilities. So
yeah, they have a pretty neat program there, Josh, with the bikes that they give away. And obviously for younger kids, they have strollers. And then they also give away, or they have tablets available for the My Voice. So really, from when they're younger to when they get older.
yeah, they have quite a few different programs to help kids. And Variety is a cool charity because it was started in Pittsburgh. Now they have different chapters in different cities, but it's Pittsburgh charity. So we're honored to partner with them, and at the event and leading up to the event, through our partners, our company donation, and through client donations, we were able to raise enough for 6 bikes. Each bike is $2,500. So initially we were hoping like 1, maybe 2 bikes. So that impact of 6 is pretty amazing. And seeing the look on the kids' faces was amazing as they presented the bikes to 4 of the families there.
Yeah, so it's important to have, a charity that is near and dear to your heart that you can be passionate about, and that's why you love it so much, Josh, because you're into biking, and now your whole family's into biking, and it's something that just speaks to you. So it's important to figure out what it is that you can be passionate about to give your money and your time to.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think when we talk about retiring with intent, right? Let's have some intention by what we're doing. And I think charitable giving is a big piece of that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. 3 different ways to give more in retirement. I think it's an important thing. Many of our retirees that we work with give time as well. Here we're talking about financially. So if we're giving money, what are some efficient ways to give money?
I just want to say that this is just one of those positive side effects of good, sound financial planning, is that not only are you in good shape, you're going to retire comfortably. We're doing that with intent, but you're going to have leftovers. You're going to have extra. You're going to have some excess. So this is just a positive consequence, let's just say, of a great financial planning. And so now and obviously we want to maximize everything that we do. So now that we have extra, where do we go, Josh?
Yeah, I think the easiest one, and one that I feel like we talk about a lot, but can never be talked about enough, is a QCD, or a Qualified Charitable Distribution. So Wendy, you've heard me talk about it, so now it's your turn to describe. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I know. I know what it is. When you have a required minimum distribution and you don't necessarily need that money, you can gift it to a charity and you will not have to pay taxes on that money.
That's good. I like it,
Yeah,
Wendy.
yeah.
I'm gonna, throw more asterisks in there. We
Okay.
can do it prior to having to give those RMDs. So really starting at age 70 and a half. So for most folks now, if you haven't started already, it's going to be 73, or it might phase all the way up till age 75 if you're younger.
But it was 70 and a half at one point, Wendy. So
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. I would say, A plus. I feel like a great teacher today.
yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Good for you, Josh.
For audio only, don't worry. I patted myself on the back.
That's right.
But yeah, the QCD enables you to give away money from an IRA directly to that charity. Now, if you take that money and let's say, hey, you know what, you donate regularly to the church or Animal Friends or a local food bank or, Variety, whatever the qualified charity might be, if you take that money out of your IRA, put it in your bank account, and then write a check for that charity, it works against the standard deduction. You have to overcome the standard deduction. For most folks, that's too hard to do in retirement. So a QCD takes it direct from your IRA direct to the charity, which is a non-taxable event. Yeah, we see this a lot and try to remind clients on an ongoing basis. The church is a common one that we see. Hey, if you're giving to the church regularly, let's go ahead and direct that via a QCD. And you're actually able to give a little bit more. If you think about it from the context of if you're in the 22% tax bracket and you would have to be giving Uncle Sam 22% of that distribution, by giving it direct to the charity, we avoid that tax weight on the distribution. So in theory, we could be giving 22% more.
Absolutely. And this is something usually it's a complement to what clients are already doing, because most people are already giving to some charities. And if it's not on your radar, if you haven't done the planning, once you hit 70 and a half, you give from a little different place. And then all of a sudden they're getting 25% more and you don't see the difference. So it's something to kind of complement usually what you're already doing, just to give a little more once you get to the special age 70 and a half.
Yeah. And so Wendy, you had indicated 70 and a half. We talked a little bit if it's when your RMD is required at age 73, if you have to take that distribution, and let's say it is $20,000 is your RMD amount, the amount that you have to take out. If you're already giving $10,000 a year to the church, well, then great, direct it to the church. That $10,000 is non-taxable and it counts towards the RMD. So now we're only being taxed on half of the RMD or the remaining 10,000 at that point. So that's extremely efficient. We had one client a few years ago that was volunteering a lot at Animal Friends, a local pet-based charity in Pittsburgh, and they had spent a lot of time there. They were donating money as they could over the years, and they had their RMDs coming out. And they said, well, I don't need this money. Like, I have enough income coming in. I don't necessarily need anymore. So we showed them how still taking the money that you're required to, but sending it directly to Animal Friends in this case, we were able to keep them in a lower tax bracket and benefit a charity that they already care. I mean, they've already given so much time and money over the years too. They were able to kind of outsize their impact there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this can affect your Medicare premium as well?
I mean, it does decrease your ordinary income, the amount that you have to pay ordinary income tax on. So potentially it could keep you, underneath that number because, it doesn't count as your ordinary income.
Yeah. So if you're reaching those IRMA thresholds where your cost of Medicare will go up based on your income, this can be another great strategy to kind of keep you down in that lower tax bracket.
Okay.
I think a QCD is an easy way. Almost all retirees can take advantage of it. If you're retired and you're giving any money to charity, a QCD is a great tool to use. After age 70 and a half, give direct to the charity. You don't have to worry about itemizing on your tax return.
Yep. Especially since it takes most retired people that we talk with don't have enough deductions to get above the standard deductions. So this allows you to get a little bit of credit for those charitable deductions that used to mean so much before they changed the tax code.
Yeah, I mean, for this year, that hurdle is $32,300 for a couple married filing joint that's older than 65 and a half.
Probably no mortgage. Those big deductions are gone. So
Yeah, the kids are gone, which are, typically a deduction in one way, shape, or another. And then the mortgage in many cases is gone. And those were things that people kind of relied on to help build up those deductions. Um, with those being gone, yeah, I think it's certainly a good option. In the scenario we talked about with $10,000 going to animal friends, that would not be enough to overcome that standard deduction there. So by doing the QCD, you actually got a tax deduction there.
but I guess there is a way that even if you don't give it directly to a charity all at once, we can actually get to a place where you can get above that large hurdle of a $30,000 standard deduction.
That's right, Pete. So the next way, the second way that we would give is a donor advised fund. So a donor advised fund allows you to give a lot of money to charity, quote unquote, in 1 year. The actual fund, the donor advised fund, is that charity. So maybe you have a large tax event year. Maybe you received a bonus or a buyout, or you had some stock options, something that causes your income to go extra high. We can overcome that standard deduction by giving. Maybe you have some deductions, but maybe you're looking to give more to help offset your tax impact. We could look at giving years ahead. If you normally give, let's say, $10,000 a year, sticking with that same figure, we could give 10 years ahead and put $100,000 into a donor advised fund. That account allows you to take the tax deduction in 1 year, but not have to distribute $100,000 to animal friends or to one individual charity at once.
Like we said, that would be the equivalent of, it depends on what tax bracket you're in. But I mean, if you're giving away $100,000 and you got the 22%, I mean, you're talking about, potentially $22,000 more, right?
Yeah.
It's a big difference. I mean, so once you start looking into some of these, it might seem a little bit like out of the league for most people to be like, oh, I'm going to gift $100,000. But if it's part of your plan, and it's going to be part of your plan, how can you just save a little bit more of that money from the government?
Yeah, I think we can also leverage the power of investing with a donor advised fund as well. So if our timeline for giving those funds away is over a 10-year time period, let's invest the money, and any of that growth can be given away to charity as well. So like Pete said, we're getting 22% tax savings, but let's say those funds grow at an average rate of 5% a year as well. Well, then we're giving 27% more away, let's say in the first year, or, we can string that out over time and let that compound. So that's super powerful. One client, they had some stock options and deferred compensation all coming in 1 year. They didn't need all the money, and they were looking for a tax deduction. So we set up a donor advised fund with them. And now we're in year 3 of them taking advantage of this strategy, and they've already earned enough for another year of giving. So the stock market's been pretty good. So that run up in the market allows them to have more in the fund to be able to give away more. That's ideal.
And once you are talking about numbers that way, we're talking about 22% tax bracket. That's right after the 12%, which most people fall in. I mean, you could be up and over 37% in the tax bracket, especially, if you're in a company that had a lot of those options. So we're talking about a minimum, but this once you start talking about more and more funds, that's whenever not only we talk about the interest compounding with investments that we can put within these things, but we could talk about that tax savings compounding as well.
In building out a donor advised fund, it doesn't have to be all at once. You can use it over time. We had the CEO of Daffy on our podcast earlier this year talking about Daffy's donor advised fund for you. It's very, very witty name. But what they do is they do a good job of tracking those donations too. So if your goal for a year is to earmark so much for a charity or for charitable giving, but maybe you just had a busy year and you didn't actually think through the causes that mean the most to you and everything else. Great. Put that money there and donate it in January or in February of next year. And what they've done is they've made a really cool interactive interface where you can track your charitable giving, you can build it up over time. One of the features in there that we've talked about some of our clients with is the ability to have children or other family members suggest charities to the fund as well. So maybe you've done a really good job earning money, but haven't thought that much about charitable giving. You know that you'd like to give some money to charity. We can earmark it in the fund and then get the input of others prior to actually giving that money to specific causes. So a really cool opportunity there.
Yeah, I encourage you to check out that podcast with Adam Nash. He started at LinkedIn, correct?
Yeah.
And so him and Josh get into it really well. Just, sometimes people's eyes get crossed once you get through a couple steps of what you need to do with these, and that just it simplifies everything and really ensures that you're going to get out all the benefits, all the tax savings that you can from this. So check out that podcast. Sorry, little promo.
No, I think it's great. Donor advised funds, especially through avenues like Daffy, are a little bit more accessible. When we started looking at them initially years ago in our practice, through a lot of the major companies, they would have minimums of $250,000. And while that's great, for most of our clients, they're not donating $250,000 at one time. So being able to do it on a smaller scale, whether it's through something like a severance package or those stock options that we talked about, where you have a higher than normal income year, but you're not looking to donate $250,000 in 1 year, it might be a little bit easier to get started with. I know for Yana and I, we started a Daffy account just as a place of, hey, we want to try to donate a little bit more. Maybe we're looking for a tax deduction at the end of the year. We can toss the money into the account. And then when we are partnering with a charity for our Narcissi event or for another cause, we can make the donations from the account at that time, not necessarily last minute at the end of the year when we're trying to optimize for taxes.
Absolutely.
Sounds smart.
Yeah. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. But trying to take advantage of these different types of accounts enables you to be more tax efficient and get more to the charities. As Pablo Picasso said, the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away, right? So we want to make sure that we're maximizing our giving as much as possible.
I guess sometimes it's, maybe there's other needs that aren't charities in our life, huh?
I joke with clients, sometimes your kids might feel like a charity. So the third one here, we wanted to talk about gifting, maybe if they're not a 501c3 or a qualified charity, right? This technique can also be used for a charity as well, let's be clear, but it's stock gifting. So many of our clients maybe bought a stock like Amazon or Nvidia lately has been the latest hot stock, where maybe they have huge appreciation in that stock. They might hesitate to sell that stock because it's going to cause them a large capital gain. If they gift the stock to someone else, it is not taxable. So if you have, that child that's still living in the basement and you're trying to help them maybe with a down payment on the house or just maybe a security deposit on an apartment, try to get them off the launch pad. Gifting stock could be a great way to help them along the way. And it doesn't cost you anything in taxes. So if we think about capital gains tax, the 15% capital gains tax bracket is what most of us think of, right? You think of capital gains, 15% tax. Well, for a couple married filing joint, that's about $94,000 up to $583,000. Maybe if you're single and not earning that much yet, if your income's under $47,000, you might not be paying any capital gains at all. So for kids just graduating from college, maybe you do want to help them out. Maybe it's not as extreme as living in your basement, but you want to help them out a little bit. You could gift stock there. We have one client that their son is getting married. So he gifted some stock towards the marriage there, where the son won't pay capital gains, but mom and dad would be.
Yeah, people don't really think that you might not have to you might owe zero taxes on some of these things that you bought it for 5, now it's 10. It's like, what do we do with that now? And the number that's set for 0%, it's a big number. It's a number that we see. Like we're talking about 8. If somebody's married, like you said, even if you're not married yet, 44,000. And that's going to go up every year, most likely. I don't want to, I guess, put it, but most likely it's going to keep going up. So it does allow for that. So just being aware that there is a point where you might be able to sell something for more than you bought it for, and not have to pay the taxes on that, the gain that you made there. So it's pretty neat there. But most of the time you got to be younger, or we see that some retired people qualifying for that. So
Yeah, sometimes in early years of retirement, you're in that lower tax bracket as well. I think one of the scenarios where we find this helpful as well is maybe you have employer stock from a job that you worked at for many years, and you have like a 90% gain on that, where almost all that money is considered a gain. And you have, from the financial planning perspective, a really high concentration in that stock, right? For us, we like to advise clients to have less than 10% in one individual stock in case something happens to that company, right? Worst case scenario, then you'd lose 10% from the total portfolio if it was an Enron or some extreme example there. In that risk mitigation, if we have 20% in the company stock, we also have a company pension, we have outsized risk in that one company, right? If that company goes bankrupt, we're going to lose that stock concentration as well as the pension potentially. So we want to be extra careful there. We want to be able to reduce that exposure. But if we're afraid of the taxes, the stock gifting can be a great way to do that, where we're kind of unwinding that position without incurring more in taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you run into those situations where your risk is compounded, and you start thinking about it, it can get pretty uncomfortable, and relieving a little bit of that can really help out. That's what we talk about doing, right? We have an intent with this, and we want to make sure that we achieve those goals, and usually less stress is part of those goals. So.
Yeah, certainly if we can relieve that stress, that's really good. As I mentioned at the beginning of this one, it doesn't have to be to children or family members. You can gift stock directly to charity as well, and you still get that same tax benefit. So you're not going to have the capital gain if you gift that stock to it. You also get to deduct whatever the current value is when you donate that. So again, if you bought something for $10, it's now worth $100. You get a tax deduction for $100, not for 10. That's pretty cool. It's based on the value of the investment. You can give it into the donor advised fund as well. I had some crypto that I had bought years ago, and I wasn't doing anything with it, so I had donated that into our donor advised fund. I got the tax deduction based on the level it was at that time. Which for particularly volatile assets like that, sometimes it makes sense to go ahead and donate that at a high and then, re-diversify there. The main 3 here that we covered today is stock gifting. And again, this works for maybe things that aren't actual charities, whether they're family members or relatives. We can also use the donor advised fund. We had talked about Daffy a little bit there, but again, that acts as a account that we can hold those charitable funds in and distribute them over time, but still get the tax deduction in 1 year. And then the first way that we talked about was a qualified charitable distribution, or a QCD. So both are great ways to be able to give a little bit more and get a tax benefit in doing so.
Absolutely. All 3 of them
Sounds like
definitely.
a plan.
That's it. It requires a plan, Wendy, and we want that set up, ahead of time. We want everybody to be informed about these things. So if you're leading up to retirement or you're in retirement, we do see, a benefit to everybody to dig into these ways to give a little bit more. We know how it feels. I encourage you to look at those different things that you can, those charities where you can look the recipient in the eye. You really, I think it takes it to a whole new level. So, look into those things. It's part of the, like I said, that it's a consequence of good planning.
Yeah, yeah, certainly we want to be able to maximize our giving. Seeing the direct impact like we did at Narcissi this year by seeing some of the families that were receiving the bikes that we raised money for was certainly empowering to us. Many times local charities are a little bit more efficient too. They don't have CEOs that are paid millions upon millions of dollars every year. So that is also very nice, but in general, we encourage you to give. As Anne Frank said, no one has ever become poor by giving. So, you know, encourage you to figure out the most efficient way for you to give. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Wendy, for joining today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe the podcast. Feel free to reach out with any questions about charitable giving. There'll be a link for a 15-minute phone call in the show notes. If you'd like to do so, you could schedule that time with Pete or I to learn more about these strategies. In the next episode, Pete and I will talk about 2 different client stories and how they were empowered by financial planning. Until next time, remember to retire with intent so you can live your golden years with the happiness and excitement you deserve.